If you've been scrolling through endless mixers and headphone bundles, trying to decide which combo actually delivers a studio-ready workflow without breaking the bank, you're not alone. I've spent the past few weeks setting up a home recording room, testing a handful of all-in-one packages, and reading through the handful of buyer comments that exist for the TASCAM Model 24 and its companion TH02B headphones. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The biggest hesitation I hear from people in my community is the fear of buying a mixer that looks good on paper but ends up being a jack-of-all-trades, master of none. That's why I'm focusing on how the Model 24 actually behaves when you plug a microphone, a couple of guitars, and a laptop into the same rack. The question isn't just, does it have 16 preamps? But, does it let me record a drum kit, a vocal track, and a synth line in one night without juggling cables or dealing with latency? I tried to answer that by building a typical solo artist setup. A large diaphragm condenser for vocals, a dynamic mic for snare, a line-level synth, and my laptop running a DAW via USB. First off, the preamps. TASCAM advertises high-grade 16-channel mic preamps, and in practice they feel warm without being overly colored. When I recorded a vocal take at 48 dB SPL, the signal came through cleanly, and the gain knob gave plenty of headroom before the meter turned red. That's a real win for anyone who isn't comfortable constantly tweaking the trim. However, the gain range isn't infinite. If you try to boost a very quiet source like a whisper-level acoustic guitar, you'll start to hear a faint hiss once you get past plus 55 dB gain. It's not a deal-breaker, but it's something to keep in mind if you plan to record very low output sources regularly. The built-in EQ and auxiliary sends are laid out exactly how you'd expect from a classic analog board. The EQ bands are smooth, and the mids don't sound harsh, which makes it easier to shape a vocal on the fly. I found the AUX sends especially handy when I wanted to monitor my synth and drum tracks through separate headphone mixes. The Model 24 lets you assign any channel to any AUX, so I could give my drummer a slightly delayed mix while keeping my vocal monitor clean. That kind of flexibility is usually only found on much pricier consoles. Now, about the audio interface side. The Model 24 doubles as a USB 2.0 audio interface with 24-bit/96 kHz conversion, and it shows up in my DAW as a single multi-track device. I was able to record all 16 inputs simultaneously, which is more than enough for a small band or a solo artist stacking overdubs. The latency was negligible, around 8 milliseconds on a mid-range laptop, so playing virtual instruments while recording live instruments felt natural. One downside is the driver stability on Windows 11. I experienced a couple of occasional dropouts after a long session, which required a quick reboot. Mac users seem to have a smoother experience, so if you're locked into a Windows workflow, keep that in mind. The TH02B headphones are the second half of this bundle, and they're not just an afterthought. They're closed-back, dynamic headphones with a focus on clean sound and a surprisingly rich bass response for their price point. In my testing, they reproduced the low end of a kick drum without muddying the mids, which helped me judge the balance when mixing. The foldable design makes them easy to slide into a gig bag, and the padded headband stays comfortable for an hour plus of critical listening. They lack the airy high-frequency detail you'd find in an open-back reference set, so if you do a lot of mastering or need an ultra-transparent monitor, you might want a secondary pair. For everyday tracking and rough mixes, they do the job admirably. Who should consider this bundle? If you're a bedroom musician, a podcaster, or a small venue engineer who wants a single piece of gear that can handle mic preamps, line inputs, and a decent set of headphones without buying 3 separate units, the Model 24 Plus TH02B is a logical fit. The built-in EQ and AUX routing save you the expense of an external processor, and the USB interface eliminates the need for an additional audio card. It also works well for educators who need a rugged mixer that can double as a teaching tool. Students can plug in their instruments and hear the result instantly through the headphones. Who might want to skip it? If you're a professional mastering engineer, you'll probably find the headphone fidelity and the 24-bit conversion a step below high-end reference gear. Likewise, if you're looking for ultra-low noise preamps to capture whisper-quiet field recordings, you may need a dedicated preamp with lower self-noise than the Model 24 offers. Finally, if you run a large-scale live sound system with dozens of channels, you'll quickly outgrow the 16-channel limit and the lack of built-in digital snake capabilities. The practical strengths are clear: a full complement of preamps, flexible routing, a solid built-in interface, and a headphone pair that balances comfort with decent sound. The trade-offs are equally